Reaching the age of 60 can feel like stepping into a new chapter of life, one where burdens that once seemed essential to carry begin to fade, and we can embrace a more authentic version of ourselves. The pressures that once defined our decisions, from career choices to social interactions, slowly dissolve as we realize that the approval of others is no longer necessary. With this shift comes a newfound freedom that allows for a life rich in peace, happiness, and fulfillment. Below are some of the things we may no longer feel compelled to do once we reach this stage. One of the most empowering changes that occur after turning 60 is the freedom from caring about what others think. For so much of our lives, we worry about the opinions of others, about how we look, how successful we are, or how our lives are perceived. These worries often shape the choices we make in our careers, relationships, and personal lives as we strive to meet societal expectations. However, as we grow older, we come to a powerful realization. Most people are not paying nearly as much attention to us as we once thought. They are preoccupied with their own lives and challenges. The anxiety of trying to fit into a mold gradually fades, replaced by the comfort of knowing that external validation is no longer a necessity. Instead, we start to make choices based on what makes us happy, rather than trying to meet someone else's standard. We may choose to dress more comfortably, or speak our minds freely without fear of judgment, and we begin to take pride in our unique quirks rather than feeling embarrassed by them. The energy once devoted to impressing others is now better spent on nurturing meaningful relationships, pursuing passions, or simply enjoying the present. Another significant shift after 60 is the ability to walk away from toxic people. Throughout our lives, we may have tolerated negative or draining relationships out of obligation, a fear of conflict, or a hope that things would improve. Whether dealing with a difficult family member, a manipulative friend, or a demanding colleague, we often pour emotional energy into managing relationships that don't serve us well. However, with the wisdom that comes with age, we begin to recognize that life is too short to spend time with people who bring negativity into our lives. After 60, we become more protective of our emotional well-being, learning to prioritize peace over chaos. Setting boundaries becomes an important act of self-care, and the ability to let go of toxic relationships becomes easier. This doesn't mean we shut ourselves off from others, but rather that we become more selective about who we allow into our inner circle. Surrounding ourselves with people who bring joy, positivity, and support helps create a healthier and more fulfilling social environment. Another thing we let go of after 60 is the need to have unrealistic expectations of others. When we are younger, we often place immense pressure on the people around us, expecting our partners to read our minds, our friends to always be available, or our families to fulfill roles that may not be realistic. This can lead to frustration and disappointment when others inevitably fall short. But with the passage of time, we learn to accept people as they are, flaws and all. After 60, we understand that no one can meet all of our needs, and expecting them to do so is unfair. Instead of holding others to impossible standards, we embrace the fact that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have. This acceptance allows for more compassionate relationships, where we appreciate small acts of kindness instead of focusing on what others lack. When we stop expecting perfection, relationships become more harmonious, and we learn to forgive, not just others, but ourselves as well. After reaching 60, we also begin to shed the pressure of setting complex, long-term goals. For much of our earlier years, society encourages us to climb the career ladder, accumulate wealth, buy a house, or raise a family, often with a sense of urgency. These ambitious goals can be rewarding, but they can also create significant stress and anxiety as we worry about meeting expectations and achieving milestones. By the time we reach 60, the drive to constantly achieve begins to wane. The focus shifts from striving for grand accomplishments to enjoying life in the present moment. The pressure to prove ourselves through external achievements diminishes, and we begin to focus on simpler, more meaningful pursuits. Our goals may shift from building a career to maintaining our health, learning a new hobby, or spending more time with the people who matter most. The need to prove something to the world fades away, replaced by a desire to live a fulfilling and joyful life on our own terms. We also stop trying to please everyone. For much of our younger years, we often feel compelled to make everyone happy, to fulfill others' expectations, or to avoid conflict at all costs. This can lead to feelings of exhaustion and resentment. After 60, we learn that it's impossible to please everyone, and we stop trying. Instead, we focus on pleasing ourselves, making decisions that align with our values, and ensuring our own happiness. This shift allows for greater authenticity in relationships, as we no longer feel the need to be everything to everyone. By letting go of the burden of others' expectations, we create space for more genuine connections. Another thing many of us let go of after 60 is the fear of failure. In our younger years, we may have been afraid to take risks or make mistakes because of the potential consequences. After 60, however, we realize that failure is often a stepping stone to growth. We become more willing to take chances, knowing that the lessons we learn from our mistakes are just as valuable as the successes we achieve. This shift in mindset allows us to embrace new opportunities with a sense of freedom and curiosity, rather than fear. Lastly, we stop holding on to grudges. With age comes the understanding that holding on to past resentments only weighs us down. After 60, we learn the importance of forgiveness, not just for others, but for ourselves as well. Letting go of past hurts brings emotional freedom, allowing us to move forward with greater peace and clarity. In sum, reaching 60 often marks a transformative period in life, where we shed the burdens of trying to meet external expectations and instead embrace a life that is authentic, peaceful, and fulfilling. The things we let go of reflect a shift in priorities, away from the pressures of the past and towards a more meaningful and joyful present. As we grow older, there's a shift in our perspective on what really matters. Rather than obsessing over long-term goals or complex achievements, we begin to appreciate the simple joys that life offers daily. The little victories, like nurturing a garden, taking a peaceful walk, or strengthening a bond with a loved one, become far more rewarding than distant aspirations. What once seemed important, like ambitious goals, now seems secondary to the present moment. We start to recognize that the true value lies not in what we achieve, but in the experiences we gather along the way. This shift in focus brings a sense of peace that allows us to live fully in the here and now, without being weighed down by the pressure to reach a specific destination. The journey, we realize, is what truly matters. For many of us, the years leading up to our 60s were filled with a constant rush. There was always something to do, some task to complete. In a world that equates busyness with productivity, we often felt that we had to stay busy just to keep up with everyone else. Whether juggling work, family, or social commitments, the busy pace was a source of pride. We believed that being constantly in motion meant we were accomplishing something, even if it left us drained and disconnected from what we actually cared about. But as we age, we begin to let go of this need to fill every moment with activity. There's a growing understanding that busyness doesn't necessarily lead to fulfillment. In fact, overloading our days with tasks often prevents us from enjoying life's more tranquil pleasures. After 60, we learn to embrace the value of slowing down. This doesn't mean giving up on productivity or disengaging from life. It simply means being more intentional with our time. Rather than mindlessly filling our days, we begin to prioritize what truly matters. There's a greater appreciation for moments of rest, reflection, and connection. Whether it's spending time with those we love, pursuing hobbies, or simply sitting in stillness, we come to value these experiences. Life becomes less about doing and more about being. The constant pressure to accomplish everything fades, replaced by a deeper sense of peace that comes from living authentically and in alignment with our values. we begin to understand that it's not the quantity of what we do, but the quality of our engagements that counts. Another notable change that occurs as we age is our approach to conflict and debate. In earlier years, there was often a strong desire to voice opinions, defend positions, and argue over everything from politics to personal beliefs. We felt compelled to prove our point, assert our identity, and participate in every discussion that came our way. But after 60, that urge tends to dissipate. We become more focused on fostering peace and understanding, rather than engaging in fruitless debates. This doesn't mean we stop caring about important issues. It simply means we choose our battles more wisely. We realize that not every disagreement needs a response, and not every discussion needs to escalate into a heated argument. With age comes a greater sense of clarity. We begin to recognize that not all conversations are worth having, and that arguing for the sake of it often leads nowhere. People are often entrenched in their beliefs, and no amount of debating is likely to change their minds. We become more selective about where we invest our emotional energy. This shift leads to more constructive and meaningful conversations, ones that build understanding rather than division. In relationships, this approach fosters harmony, as we prioritize connection over being right. We embrace differences of opinion with grace and respect, recognizing that every individual's perspective is valid. Letting go of the need to argue brings greater peace, both internally and in our relationships with others. Similarly, as we age, we start to shed the pressure to be perfect. For much of our earlier years, we strived for perfection in every aspect of our lives, whether it was in our careers, relationships, or appearance. The pursuit of flawlessness often weighed heavily on us. But as we reach our 60s, we come to the liberating realization that perfection is not only impossible, but unnecessary. Life is full of imperfections, and these flaws are what make it interesting and meaningful. The constant striving for perfection often leads to stress and a sense of never being enough. But as we age, we learn to embrace our imperfections and those of others. We realize that it's okay to be flawed, and in fact it's what makes us human. This acceptance allows for a deeper sense of peace and contentment. This shift doesn't mean we stop caring about doing our best. We still strive for excellence and take pride in our work. However, the unrealistic pressure to be perfect begins to fade. We become more comfortable with the messiness of life, and we stop trying to control every outcome. This sense of freedom allows us to live with more ease and less anxiety. We learn that perfection is not the key to happiness. Rather, it's the ability to accept life as it is, with all its imperfections, that brings us true peace. Ultimately, as we move through our later years, we begin to embrace life on our own terms. We learn to prioritize joy over achievement, connection over conflict, and acceptance over perfection. The small victories, the quiet moments, and the meaningful relationships take center stage in our lives. The journey becomes more important than the destination, and we learn to savor each moment without the constant pressure to be somewhere else, doing something else. It's a shift that brings greater fulfillment and peace, allowing us to truly enjoy the richness of life in all its imperfect beauty. As we journey through life, we often become so focused on striving for perfection that we overlook the beauty in the imperfections. In our earlier years, we tend to set high standards for ourselves, believing that achieving them is the key to happiness and success. However, as we grow older, especially after reaching 60, there's a shift in how we view these pursuits. We begin to realize that striving for an unattainable ideal can weigh us down. When we let go of the need for perfection, we also develop a deeper sense of compassion, both for ourselves and for others. We learn to accept our mistakes as part of the process, understanding that they do not diminish our value. Instead of being harsh on ourselves for every flaw, we embrace the imperfections in our lives. We begin to appreciate the moments as they are, allowing room for growth and learning. Life after 60 teaches us that mistakes aren't failures. They are simply stepping stones to greater understanding and personal development. There's also a noticeable change in how we approach the future. Throughout much of our lives, we are conditioned to worry about what's coming, whether it's saving for retirement, ensuring our children's education, or planning for unexpected expenses. This constant concern about what lies ahead creates a kind of underlying anxiety. We often find ourselves asking, "What if?" and imagining worst-case scenarios that distract us from fully living in the present. But as we reach the age of 60 and beyond, a new perspective emerges. While planning for the future still holds importance, the overwhelming worry about things beyond our control begins to fade. We come to understand that life is unpredictable. No matter how meticulously we plan, things don't always unfold as we expect. That's simply part of the journey. The realization settles in that worrying about tomorrow doesn't change anything except the quality of today. Instead of getting consumed by the uncertainties of the future, we learn to appreciate what's in front of us right now. With time, we start to shift our focus away from long-term worries and more toward the present moment. We understand that it's not about having all the answers for the years ahead, but rather about making the most of today. This mindset doesn't mean neglecting responsibilities. It's about finding a balance. We can still plan for the future, but we no longer let fear of the unknown control our happiness. Letting go of excessive worry opens up a sense of freedom, allowing us to enjoy the present without being bogged down by what-ifs. Time becomes more valuable, and we find joy in the little things, whether it's spending a quiet morning with a cup of coffee, enjoying time with loved ones, or engaging in an activity that brings us joy. Life after 60 is no longer about fearing the future, but trusting that whatever challenges come our way, we are equipped to handle them. We've faced difficulties before, and we've come through them stronger. With that confidence, we realize that the future, while uncertain, doesn't need to be feared. It's simply another chapter in our ongoing journey. Another significant change after 60 is the way we view social obligations. In earlier stages of life, there's often a strong pressure to attend every event and meet every expectation, whether it's family gatherings, work functions, or social engagements with friends. We may feel compelled to say yes to everything, fearing that saying no could disappoint others or make us seem antisocial. The desire to maintain appearances and avoid missing out on anything often leads to overcommitting ourselves, leaving us feeling drained. But as we age, this sense of obligation begins to fade. We start to realize that our time and energy are limited resources, and we don't need to be everywhere at once. This doesn't mean we stop socializing or connecting with others. Rather, we become more intentional about where we invest our time and energy. The fear of missing out gives way to the understanding that true fulfillment doesn't come from being at every event. It comes from meaningful, genuine interactions with those who truly matter. We learn to say no without guilt, prioritizing the activities and people that bring us joy and peace. The quality of our social connections becomes far more important than the quantity. As a result, our relationships tend to grow deeper and more authentic. We can now spend time with those who uplift us, who bring positivity into our lives, and who accept us for who we are. The superficial connections that once filled our calendars become less frequent, making room for deeper, more fulfilling moments of connection. Alongside this, we also discover the beauty of solitude. For much of our lives, we might have felt pressured to always be doing something, always being social, to feel valued or connected. But after 60, we learn that spending time alone doesn't diminish our worth. It nourishes our soul. Whether it's reading a good book, taking a walk in nature, or simply reflecting on life, solitude offers a sense of peace and introspection that is incredibly fulfilling. We no longer feel the need to constantly fill our schedules with obligatory social activities. Instead, we cherish the moments that matter, the ones that nourish us emotionally and spiritually. As we age, our time becomes more precious, and we learn to focus on what truly enriches our lives. In the end, life after 60 isn't about slowing down or giving up. It's about living more intentionally, shedding the habits and mindsets that no longer serve us, and embracing the freedoms that come with age. It's about choosing joy, peace, and gratitude. As we reflect on the wisdom gained over the years, we realize that the richness of our experience far outweighs any stress or uncertainty we once carried. So, if you're watching this video and feeling inspired, take a moment to reflect on your own life. Embrace the present, trust the journey, and remember that the best is yet to come. I hope you'll join me again for more videos that inspire growth, reflection, and the pursuit of joy. Life is a beautiful journey, and we can make the most of every single moment. Thank you for being here today.